Let's pause for just a moment. Take a breath with me. In and out. Because what we're about to explore isn't easy. But it might just be what your heart has been quietly asking for. You know, emotional detachment doesn't always come at the moment of goodbye. Sometimes, it begins much earlier. In the middle of a conversation that suddenly feels hollow. In the silence after a text goes unanswered. In the space between two people who once shared everything, but now feel like strangers under the same roof. It creeps in quietly. Not with a dramatic ending, but with the slow fading of presence, of attention, of care. And here's the truth no one tells us. The hardest part isn't losing someone. It's losing yourself while trying to hold on to them. We often think the fight is with the other person, trying to make them stay, to make them love us like they used to. But the real battle? It happens within. It's the moment you realize that clinging isn't love. That begging isn't connection. That sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort isn't a noble act. It's a slow erosion of self. So today, I'm not here to offer closure. I'm here to offer a mirror, to help you see what's really happening beneath the surface. Because the most powerful journey you can take right now is the one back to yourself. And it all begins with a simple shift. From waiting to awakening. One of the most difficult truths we ever have to face is this. You cannot control how someone else feels. You can't force them to love you. You can't make them stay. And you can't rewrite their choices, no matter how deeply you care. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow. We've been taught to believe that if we just love hard enough, if we give more, sacrifice more, try harder, then maybe, just maybe, they'll come around. But that belief is where the pain begins. Because here's the reality. Letting go is not giving up. It's not weakness. It's not failure. Letting go is choosing peace over chaos. It's choosing your mental clarity over emotional confusion. It's recognizing that holding on to someone who's already drifting away is like clenching a burning rope. The tighter you hold, the deeper the wound. So, what if the real act of love isn't about clinging to someone else, but about staying loyal to yourself? You are responsible for how you love, not how it's received. You're responsible for how you show up, not how others recognize it. And you're responsible for how you heal, not whether they ever come back to make it right. That's not selfish. That's powerful. Because when you stop fighting battles that were never yours to win, you begin to reclaim something much more valuable. Yourself. So ask yourself today, what am I still trying to control that was never mine to hold? The moment you let that go, you don't lose. You rise. Have you ever noticed how your mind only seems to remember the good parts? The way they used to laugh at your jokes. That one night, the world felt still, and it was just you and them, like a scene from a movie. But here's the catch. Memory has a habit of editing out the parts that hurt. The long silences, the emotional distance, the way you felt unseen, unheard, but stayed anyway. You start to believe that what you lost was perfect, irreplaceable. But you're not missing the person. You're missing the fantasy. You're in love with the version of them your heart created to survive the heartbreak. And I get it. That version? They were kind, present, safe, but they weren't real. One of the most powerful lessons from Stoic philosophy is this. See things as they are, not as you wish they were. Because when we cling to illusions, we feed pain. We nurture a ghost, one that cannot return, cannot heal you, cannot grow. And I want to ask you gently, what are you really holding on to? The person? Or the story you wrote about them? Real love doesn't thrive in fantasy. It lives in truth, in clarity, in the uncomfortable but necessary act of seeing someone as they truly are, and choosing yourself anyway. So the next time your mind drifts back, pause. Breathe. Ask, am I remembering what was real? Or am I replaying a highlight reel that only tells half the story? Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means seeing clearly and loving yourself enough to let go. Sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is step back. Not out of anger, not to play games, but because clarity often comes in silence, in distance. When emotions are raw, proximity can feel like poison. Trying to heal while staying tangled in their world. Watching their stories, rereading old messages, checking who they're with and where they've been. It's like trying to dry off while standing in the rain. Have you ever caught yourself doing that? Telling yourself you're moving on, but still orbiting their digital presence like a satellite? I've been there. It's addictive. Not because it helps, but because it gives the illusion of connection. But every scroll, every revisit, isn't helping you understand them. It's helping you forget yourself. And here's the shift. When you stop handing over your attention, you start to reclaim your power. Because attention is energy. And where your attention goes, your heart follows. So, if you're still checking their page, ask yourself, what are you really looking for? Validation? A sign they still care? Or maybe permission to let go? Distance isn't cold. It's necessary. It gives your nervous system space to breathe. It helps you see the situation for what it is, not what you hoped it would be. This isn't about deleting memories. It's about deleting the habits that keep you stuck in someone else's story. You don't need closure from them. You need distance for you. And in that space, you finally get to hear your own voice again. We often think our pain is caused by what someone else did. They stopped calling. They changed. They walked away like none of it mattered. But what if I told you it's not the event itself that breaks us? It's the story we tell ourselves about it. He left me because I'm not enough. She ignored me because I'm forgettable. They moved on because I was never truly wanted. That's where suffering lives. Not in reality, but in interpretation. The Stoics understood this long ago. They taught that freedom doesn't come from changing other people. It comes from changing how we respond to them. Think about that. You don't have to chase them when they pull away. You don't have to spiral when their silence cuts deep. You don't have to hand over your self-worth just because they no longer see it. Your reaction, that's where your power lives. That's your sacred space. And I know it's hard. When you love someone deeply, your instincts scream for answers, for validation, for a reason. But emotional maturity is learning to pause, to breathe through the trigger instead of becoming it, to choose your response instead of being consumed by theirs. And the real strength? It's when someone treats you with indifference and you still choose dignity, still choose peace. Because in a world full of chaos and noise, your calm becomes your rebellion. So ask yourself, does this reaction reflect who I truly am? Or is it just a plea to be seen by someone who's already gone? Choose the response that honors your future, not the one that chases their attention. That's stoicism. That's freedom. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught a dangerous idea. That love is something we earn, something we chase, something that only exists when it's returned. And so, we run after it, through unanswered texts, mixed signals, long nights waiting for someone to finally see our worth. But what if I told you that's not love? That's survival. That's fear, dressed in hope. Real love was never meant to be a transaction. It's not a prize to be won. It's something we offer freely because it's who we are. The Stoics rarely wrote about romantic love the way we define it today. But they were clear on this. Anything rooted in virtue, in honesty, in integrity, cannot destroy you. True love doesn't manipulate. It doesn't make you shrink. It doesn't force you to sacrifice your peace for its presence. It flows from your values, not from their validation. And yes, maybe they didn't love you back. Maybe they walked away. Maybe they couldn't hold what you gave. But that doesn't mean your love was wasted. It means your heart still works, that you're still capable of depth, of tenderness, of truth. And that's rare in a world that teaches us to guard everything and feel nothing. So here's what I invite you to remember. You're not less worthy because they couldn't love you. You're just learning to give that love to the one person who needs it most right now, yourself. Because the most beautiful kind of love is the one you give freely and still walk away with your dignity intact. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Are you still in love with them? Or are you just addicted to the feeling of missing them? It's a hard question, but it's one worth asking. You see, pain has a way of making us believe there's still something meaningful there. We confuse the ache in our chest with proof that the connection must have been real, that if it still hurts, it must still matter. But pain isn't always connection. More often, it's resistance. It's the mind clinging to a story we haven't fully released. It's our inability to accept that something we cherished is over. And it's not just emotional, it's neurological. Missing someone becomes a habit. The sadness, the longing, it loops. Not because they're meant to come back, but because your brain doesn't yet know what to do without them. But here's the truth. If the only thing keeping them alive in your heart is your pain, that's not love. That's a wound. Letting go doesn't mean the relationship didn't matter. It doesn't mean you're erasing memories or betraying what was real. It means you're choosing self-respect over self-destruction. It means you're creating space, not just for peace, but for something new, something better. So next time your heart tightens and your thoughts drift back, pause and ask yourself, is this love or just familiar suffering? Because healing doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting pain write the next chapter. When someone leaves your life, you're not just grieving them. You're grieving who you were when they were beside you. You grieve the version of yourself that smiled more, believed more, maybe even felt whole in ways you haven't since. But here's something I've learned painfully, but clearly. Healing doesn't happen by staring at the closed door. It begins when you finally turn around and start asking different questions. Not why did they leave, but who am I becoming now that they're gone? Because the truth is, you haven't just lost something. You've been given space, and space is sacred. This is where something new can be built, not out of revenge, not to prove your worth, but because you deserve to live fully again. Maybe you silenced parts of yourself to make that relationship work. Maybe you dimmed your light just to keep the peace. Maybe you stopped growing because you were too busy holding on. So now what would it look like to grow again? Not just to move on, but to rise up? Start small. Return to your passions. Redefine your routines. Speak to yourself the way you once wished they would. Because this chapter, it's not about fixing what broke. It's about becoming someone stronger. Because of it, you're not rebuilding for them. You're rebuilding for you. So, I'll ask you one final question. What will you create now? Not to be seen, but because you finally see yourself? Sometimes, the hardest part isn't the goodbye. It's what comes after. It's the little cracks we leave open. The late-night text we still hope for. The social media profile we keep checking, just in case. But here's the truth. Every time you leave the door cracked open for someone who already left, you invite chaos into the one place that should be sacred. Your peace. Peace isn't something the world hands you. It's not hidden in someone's return or found in their apology. Peace is something you build. Decision by decision. Boundary by boundary. It's in the moment you choose not to reply. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. It's in the moment you unfollow quietly, not to hurt them, but to stop hurting yourself. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And you? You prove yourself every time you protect your peace, even when it feels lonely. Even when part of you still hopes they'll come back. Because the truth is, they might return. But if they do, you'll meet them not with desperation, but with discernment. Your peace is your job. It's not up for negotiation. Not everyone deserves access to the calm you fought to create. So ask yourself, what have I been allowing that keeps disturbing my peace? And are they really worth it? If they cost you? We all want that final conversation, don't we? The one where they explain why they changed, why they walked away, why it felt so easy for them to let go, while you were still holding on. But here's what no one really tells you. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you create within yourself. The Stoics remind us that peace doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the story you choose to tell yourself. When the old one doesn't make sense anymore. So, maybe you never got an explanation. Maybe they just disappeared. Maybe they left without a word, without a warning, without the decency you deserved. That hurts. Of course it does. But here's the truth. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need them to tie up the loose ends that they were never mature enough to handle. What you felt, what you experienced, that's real. That's enough. You don't need more than that to begin again. So instead of waiting for a message that may never come, what if you gave yourself permission right now to heal without their words, to grow without their closure, to write a new chapter that doesn't begin with, why did they leave? But with, here's where I rise. You don't need their validation to let go. You just need your own. And that is more than enough. Sometimes, it's not the person we're still holding on to. It's the story we told ourselves about them. The version we created in our mind, the one who would finally show up, apologize, understand, and love us the way we always hoped they would. But here's the hard truth. You weren't in love with them. You were in love with the idea of them. And the longer you stay in that fantasy, the more you put your life on pause, waiting for a moment that may never come. The Stoics would say, reality is your ally, illusion is your enemy. That sounds harsh, I know, but it's also liberating. Because the moment you stop chasing the version of someone who only lives in your imagination, you begin to reclaim your freedom. Freedom doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight. It means choosing what is, even if it stings, over what could have been. It means letting go of the story that always ends with, maybe, and choosing instead a life that begins with, now. Ask yourself honestly, how much peace have you lost chasing someone who stopped showing up? How many mornings have you spent hoping for a message that never came? You don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to live in what-ifs. You deserve something real. And it begins the moment you stop waiting for them and start returning to yourself. If no one's told you this lately, let me be the one. You're not broken. You're becoming someone who chooses truth over fantasy. Peace over chaos. Self-worth over waiting. You see, healing isn't loud. It doesn't always come with grand declarations or perfect closure. Sometimes it's quiet. Just a small moment of clarity, a breath where you choose not to check their page, a single thought that whispers, I deserve more than this. Those moments, they're everything. Because every time you choose yourself over the illusion of what could have been, you're taking your power back. Inch by inch, thought by thought. The turning point in your story? It's not when they come back. It's when you do. When you look in the mirror and see someone who's no longer chasing, no longer shrinking, no longer waiting to be chosen. Because you already chose yourself. This isn't about pretending you were never hurt. It's about remembering that hurt isn't where the story ends. It's where a new one begins. So walk forward today, not with regret, but with quiet strength. You're not who you were before the pain. You're wiser now, stronger now, more awake than ever. And that is the real return.